The second part of the question is like which books or things like made things click. So there's one moment that made things click, which was, I said this in the book, Sam, which is like make people offer so good they'd feel stupid saying no, which was the secret of selling, right? Is like if you just make it so good that they won't say no, then it makes your job 100 times easier. And so I did work really hard on that side to make my job easier.
Yeah, and I agree with that. My problem when I'm a copywriter, former self-taught copywriter, and I know all about that, but I'm like, if people want to refund this is going to be a pain in the butt. Like if they, like in order to make this in order to make an offer irresistible, you could go a couple different routes, but one of them is you just do lots of stuff. And when I think about that route, I'm like, oh my god, that's going to be a lot of work. I don't know if I can actually execute on that.
Alex, what's an example of that? So give an example of where you see people with a kind of substandard offer and how you would switch it to be a more irresistible offer.
I mean, a simple one we did within the agency space in the software company that we started was we helped them transition from a retainer model to a pay performance model. So that was an implied guarantee. And we just said, listen, pay us one time up front, which by the way, for most of them was what their LTV was because most of them sucked. So it's like if you're charging $1,500 a month, which would be probably the standard small business B2B, I would say commoditized price point for generic lead gen, they're charging $1,500 a month. We said, hey, charge your person $5,000 up front day one and say you'll never charge them again unless someone walks in the door. And so they'll cover the ad spend after that, and you don't get any percentage of it unless someone walks in the door. So you generate the leads and work the leads, and when the person shows up, you charge X. And that was based on a pricing survey that we ran internally to our customers, where I said, if we worked your leads for you, what would you be willing to pay as a flat rate? And so there was a big pricing curve, and the concentration of like 75% were willing to pay between $300 and $400 a month for that, just as a flat service. And I was like, okay. Now I asked the exact same scenario, same result, same everything later on in the survey. And I said, if we just said, hey, pay per show, what would you be willing to pay for somebody who walks in the door? For the same exact performance, they're willing to pay 4 times as much. And so I said, well, why don't we price it that way? And so we did it on a pay per show model. And so that's what we transitioned. And it also makes it way easier to sell. We could cash flow the acquisition because we were making the LTV that but like the agencies could make normally upfront day one in cash. And what's cooler is then the first 30 days, they had people show up. So they get cash up front. And then in the first 30 days, they're still getting cash that they can use to finance the acquisition of the customer, right? And so that's a much more irresistible offer from a chiropractor. It's like, well, how do I know it's going to work? It's like, you pay us one time just to get all the shit set up. And then from this point going forward, only when someone shows up, you have to pay.
And so people understand this